Well, hey, young adults, welcome to podcast. I'm so glad you've tuned in today. You've tuned in on a great episode. And hey, we've been doing these for a while this year. We've been doing them because of lockdown. We haven't been gathering in person. So we've had some great conversation around some relevant topics. But today will be the last one because we are back in person and we're going to carry on conversations like this, but in person. But hey, we've saved the best for last because we've got some guest speakers on today. We have got Josh and Becky Chadwick. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. We are so glad that you've come.
Our pleasure.
I know it's busy because you have 3 kids, man. I have 2 and I find it busy. So adding one more to the equation, you guys are doing amazing. But hey, we are joined with you too. And I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to have today because it's all about relationships and marriage.
Yeah.
Because our young adults, I think, deep down, their favorite thing to talk about is relationships and dating and marriage and everything. And guys, if you know Josh and Becky, you will know that they lead our marriage course here, so the pre-marital course. So you guys are just the experts. You've been married, what, 9
I don't know
years?
about that.
9 years, Mark?
Nearly 9 years. 9 years in December.
Well
yeah.
done. Well,
Yeah.
me and Nathan are 5 years this week.
Fantastic.
We're getting there. But I'm so excited. And we're going to get straight into it because we've got loads to talk about today. So again, thank you for joining us. You're a great couple. You know, we inspire you. You're a funny couple. You know, you just teach us how to do life crazy and do it well. But hey, why do you think, you know, at Liverpool One Church, we have something like a pre-marital course or pre-marriage course?
Well, we did one way back when
in
in
the day.
the church that we were in at the time. And we found it really valuable. What's really funny is we actually found it really valuable with hindsight. So when we were married and we were looking back and we were figuring things out, we're like, oh, actually, do you remember the thing that we did? Actually, it really helped us out. And we noticed that there was a flurry of marriages going on in Liverpool One Church. And we thought, is this something that we should be bringing to the table? So we suggested it and we took it from there.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I know me and Nathan didn't have one, so you obviously weren't doing it when we got married, and that's why we've ended up so in the ditches. No, we're fine. We're getting there. But no, I think it's so good because in anything in life, you know, the more you're prepared for it, the better you're going to be at it. And obviously you can learn during it, but...
Yeah, and I think the great thing is as well, from, you know, a Christian perspective, is that God's got something to say about every part of our life, and that includes marriage. Definitely. You know, in John 10, Jesus says he came to give, to let us live life to its fullest. Yeah. And that means everything. And quite often when you watch TV or you read the papers, you see people's relationships failing. You know, the media love to like have a breakup in there and someone's marriage failing and tell you all about it. But the truth is that God came, God sent Jesus to come so that we can live life to its fullest, and that includes relationships. Yeah. And that's why we feel quite passionately about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you guys, you know, you've been married 9 years now. You know, what's some advice you can give people? And, you know, we've got people listening right now who are single, hoping to be married one day. You've got people who are dating and hoping that they're going to get a ring on their finger very soon. Or you've got people who are engaged. And you've even got people who are married who are listening. And I think it's important for everyone. But, you know, what's one thing you'd say is important to remember about relationships or when you're in a relationship?
I think there's maybe 2 things that I would say to really consider. The first thing is communication. Yeah. Communication, good communication is so key. Yeah. Because it really is the bedrock. It's the foundation, isn't it, of being in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's something platonic. If you can't communicate successfully with each other, then actually everything else becomes so much harder. Yeah. So communication is really at the heart of a good relationship, whether that's a marriage, whether you're dating, whether you're work colleagues. Mm-hmm. So I think that is absolutely key.
What? I'm joking. We communicate well.
So do you communicate well?
We do. I talk, he listens.
Yeah, I've learned that. And then the other thing I think when we're specifically thinking about relationships and marriage is just to be really aware of your preconceptions. You know, something that I've become really aware of living life as a married person and now having kids and everything is that so much of what I do and what I expect is actually based on things I've seen in the past. There's certain behaviors that I have, certain things that I do, certain expectations that I hold that really have been because I've seen that. Yeah. And sometimes the hardest thing is to bridge the difference in expectations that we have. And that's why communication is so key, because if you can't communicate, how can you even bridge that gap? Yeah. So I think that's something else that's been really key in our marriage and in marriage generally.
Yeah. How do you two do that then? Like, so communication's key, but, you know, how do you do the communication? So like, what does that practically look like? So you've got some couples thinking, okay, I know I need to talk to them, but what's the best approach?
I think, first of all, what we need to be aware of is that so much communication's non-verbal.
Yeah.
I think it's 7% is actually the words that you say. So everything else is body language. I like to talk a lot with my hands. Looks, the tone of your voice. That's communication. So communication isn't just what you're saying, it's how you're saying. It's about making yourself available, accessible. Yeah. It's about like engaging with each other. So not half listening and half responding, but actually communicating in a really good way. Yeah. And I think it takes practice.
Yeah, definitely.
And I remember on the pre-marriage course we did, they actually did this practice session. It was ridiculous. We just laughed at it. But actually it was quite good because even now when if there's a little bit of a disagreement about something, we do it in a jokey, kind of taking the mick almost way. So if Josh has said something that I'm not taking too kindly to, probably been able to tell because I've rolled my eyes or crossed my arms, body language, not what I've said, but how I've communicated it. And he's then supposed to say to me, so I understand I've upset you. How has that happened? And then I'm supposed to respond, you've upset me because it's absolutely ridiculous. This is not on our pre-marriage course. Do we do this in the course?
Only when I'm really in trouble.
We don't do that. But yeah, I think practice and not practicing in that silly way, but just being around each other. You get to know each other 8.5 years in. I mean, they say that you're really comfortable with someone if you can sit in silence. Yeah. And one of the best people I do that with is my mum. Yeah. Like literally we'll just sit for hours in silence because we know each other. We've known each other for, I'm not telling you how many years because you'll know how old I am. But we've known each other for a long time. We're comfortable with each other. So communication is key in any relationships. It's obviously not just marriage. We're just talking because we're married. And I'm not trying to book sell at all because I'm not on commission, but I would really recommend that people read 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I know a lot of people have read it. I mean, we've read it, we've done the quiz, we've reread it as well.
Hands up, little confession here. So we first came across it on our pre-marriage course and we had to do a little survey and you had to say what you thought was the other person's love language. Okay. And I got Beck totally wrong. Oh, absolutely, totally wrong.
I got it. Yes, girl. Bang on. You put gifts as my top, and I was really offended. I totally crossed my arms and rolled my eyes at that. But no, I think it's a really good book to read, just about understanding you and how you communicate, and then realising how your spouse or your child or your friend, it's written for single people as well. It's just a good read.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I find as well, like, seasons you change as well your love language. So like my love language has changed from when I first got married. So you know what I mean? Like now I might have said physical touch when I first got married, but now I've got kids, I'm like, get off me, I just want space. Don't touch me, just tell me you love me, tell me I'm a good person, tell me I'm a good mum. And it changes. So I think that's why communication is key, because when you get married, you're not going to be the same couple when you first get married till 5 years later, 10 years later. So as you change, your marriage is going to change and you need to communicate to keep up with each other almost.
And the art of communication is actually saying something in a way the other person can understand. So often people say, communicate to me. So I can communicate, I can tell Beck all I want to tell her, but if I don't say it in a way that she can understand it and take it on board, well, that's not communication. And active listening is as much a part of communication as speaking. So it's about the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. There's such a difference between men and women.
Yes.
And you can read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and all those kinds of books, and they're good to read and they're fun. But there is truth in it. Yeah. On average, a man speaks about 3,000 words in a day. Women, about 12,000 on average. Yeah. So we do just say more, and it's a real difference between men and women, because men very much communicate to solve problems, to be heard, to say this is who I am and this is what I mean. Whereas a woman will communicate to build the relationship, to just have that time together, and just to be heard and understood and feel valued. And that's something that's really important, I think, to understand.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're talking here about marriage, and this whole course that you do is on marriage. And, I wanted to bring you guys on so people who have not on the course yet or not done it yet, they get to have a little insight onto it. But, so often you know, we always talk, or maybe we laugh about the negatives of marriage or the hard times, or you've got to communicate, all these things you've got to do. Some people might be thinking and watching, well, why even marriage? Like, what is even the point? If it's that hard, if it's that much stress, if that much of it ends up in divorce, you know, if I can just date someone, why shouldn't I not just continue dating? What even is the point of marriage?
Yeah, I think it's a really valid question, especially in today's society. So many people, especially if they're looking at their past and what's happening, what they've experienced. A lot of people do write off marriage. I think it's really, really important to know that it's God's design right from the very beginning. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten the first book of the Bible.
Genesis.
I was going to say Exodus. Yes. Oh my goodness, please edit that out. But no, it's God's design. Right from the beginning, he made man and he made woman to be joined together, to become one flesh. It's his design, and he says that it's very good. And I think then when we get into, well, what is marriage? What it does, being married in that marital relationship, is it reflects your new priorities, your new normal. Your new priority is your spouse. I think that's really important.
One thing that I really like about that whole Genesis piece, where God created us, it says God created man and woman in his image. So God is neither man nor woman. So I think of that, and when I reflect on that, I think, well, actually, for me to most reflect God in my imperfect self, but to best reflect God and who God is, actually, Beck enables me to do that, and hopefully I enable her to do that, because Beck is in God's image and I'm in God's image, so together we can be more like God. Of course, we'll never be exactly like him, but...
And I always find as well, you know, I think, for me anyway, since being married, you know, I've probably become more like Jesus since being married, because it forces you to be selfless. I mean, you know, before you're married, you just think about yourself. And I think the whole art of being a Christian is being like, less of me, more of you, God. And it's dying to yourself. So I think when you go through things like marriage, it's good for you, because actually it's fine-tuning you. It's making you become more like Jesus, because you're becoming selfless. Then you have kids and you become even more selfless. And then you don't even have yourself. I mean, where am I? But no, so I think that's great. I think marriage is great for that as well. Yes, it's a challenge to it, but through every challenge, it's going to define you, and it's going to, you know, shape you and mold you into, you know, who's God's called you to be.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really interesting point there, you know, about Jesus. And actually, you know, when you read the Bible, it often describes marriage as a reflection of Jesus's relationship with his church, i.e., with his people. And really, that is the crux of it. To have a successful relationship, you know, whether it's a marriage or otherwise, actually, it can only be at its fullest when Jesus is at the center. And what did Jesus do? Jesus came and he was a servant. He served, and he served first. And that is really tough, really, really tough. And something that is always a daily challenge.
What do you do, Josh, to serve Becky?
So I will try and give Beck the best lie-ins possible. That's tough, though, because you've got kids, and you know, you've got football club practice, acrobatics, and all sorts.
And Becky, what do you do to serve Josh?
Everything other than the lions.
Oh no!
I'm joking. We have blue jobs and pink jobs. And they just split ourselves. It's a natural split. So, for instance, Josh is a really good cook. So Josh quite often will cook. And then, you know, there's just different roles that we've kind of taken on in our own strength, not gender-based specifically, but you always put the bins out.
Bins are my job.
You do the gardening.
There you go.
So that's
it's a teamwork.
It is teamwork.
And hey, I think I've realised you can't downplay your partner because they don't have one gift. If they're not an amazing cook, but then they serve in the house and they do all the, you know, you kind of got to be like, you know, give and take where it comes, and be a bit graceful for that.
100%.
But hey, you're talking a little bit there about some, you know, key message about the Bible, what it says about marriage and stuff. What would you say? Because there is so much to learn in the Bible about marriage. What are some of the key things you take out of the Bible that you think this is really great for marriage?
So I think first of all, it's really important to understand actually what the Bible does say. So there's sections of the Bible. So if you think about Ephesians, where there's the whole bit about women submitting to men and all that sort of stuff, and historically it's actually been taken in quite a negative way for women and quite a dominating way. But actually, when you read the whole thing, it kind of sets the standard, if you like. So it says that women to submit to men, i.e. to serve and put that person first, and then men are called to serve their wife like Jesus served the church. And what did he do? He was the ultimate servant. And for me, that was a real challenge when I kind of read that. And because Jesus, what did he do? He came and he was the ultimate peacemaker. So he was the person who was blameless, who was spotless. And yet, even though it wasn't his fault, he put his hand up and he copped it and he said, you know what? Let's make peace. Yeah. And I take that into our marriage, because sometimes, you know, we're just people, aren't we? And we get to points and positions where we disagree and it feels like there's a bit of an impasse. But as a man, I feel it's my responsibility to take that example that Jesus set and to be the peacemaker. And even if it's not fair and even if it's not right, it doesn't matter, because Jesus still, it wasn't fair for Jesus to die on the cross, was it? Yeah. But that is what I'm called to do as the man in the relationship. Yeah. So I think there's some really key messages. First of all, let's not get misled by what things may seem like. I think it's really important to understand how things are culturally when they were written back then, and also just to look a little bit beneath the meaning, you know. So if you read that, it's not about women submitting and being subservient. It's about women serving with a servant heart and men doing exactly the same, but to Jesus' standard.
Yeah. I think if your husband is loving you as Jesus loved the church, why would you not submit to that? Yeah, if you feel safe, if you absolutely trust them, if you know that they have just got your best interests at heart, why would you not? It's not a yes boss, no boss kind of thing. No. It's a, do you know what? I just completely give myself to you and I just trust you, and I think it's really important. And it does actually say right at the beginning of Ephesians 5, submit to each other. Yeah. So it is a reciprocal thing. Yeah. I know a lot of people would read that and go, and I think in the olden days, I think it was absolutely used as a, you know, you can take any isolated sentence out of the Bible and use it to your own ends. And what we've got to do is it's a living, breathing word, and it's God breathed. And so we've just got to look at it and think, well, God and his heart, what did he mean by that?
Yeah. 100%.
That's great. Well, you know, a relationship, obviously, boys, girls come together, you know, and we can give advice to couples as a couple, but also it's very beneficial for girls to have some specific things said to them and boys to have specific things said to them, because like you said, wired differently, need to hear different things sometimes, need to be challenged in different ways, need to be encouraged in different ways. Yeah. So Josh, what's something that you'd say maybe for the boys listening? Some encouragement for marriage for them?
So I think inherently guys are lazy, okay? So I think
Nathan's
guys...
not like that point. No.
I think that's the truth, you know. I'm going to confess about it right now. And I think it's really important because in the early days, when it's really exciting, you're getting to know your new love and everything is easy, isn't it? You know, there is no effort. But actually, as time goes on, it's really important to make the effort, because it can be really easy to forget and to put things as second or third place to other things. So I think, guys, get into the habit of making an effort. Carve out time. Be intentional about what you want to do. If you want your relationship to be excellent, then you've got to give it the time and the priority to do that. And make sure that you're intentional the way you live your lives together to do that. So I think that's the key bit of advice I would give other guys.
Yeah. Bex, to the girls?
Let it go. Not Frozen.
I'm about to sing Frozen.
I know that you in particular have got Frozen going on, and I'm not going to sing it because ears would actually bleed. But holding on to grudges and offences, it's not healthy for a relationship. Any relationship, not just between a married couple, but between friends, between siblings, between work colleagues, it's just destructive. Yeah. And it's actually more harmful for the person that's holding the grudge, that's holding on to that than anything. And I say this from experience. I have a little book of divorce. It's not an actual physical book. It's just a bit of a jokey thing. But if Josh does something or says something off colour and I'm not happy about it, I say it's going to go in my book of divorce. Sometimes he gets a double-page spread because it's that offensive.
I've never heard of such a thing, Becky. It's hilarious.
This is us. It's
great.
How we great. But yeah, I do that and I'm joking and we understand it and we know it. It's just my way of saying, I'm not happy about that. And sometimes it's something silly. It might not even be something that's properly an issue. I think it's okay to remember things, and Josh will say, I've got the memory of an elephant, and I'm not offended by it whatever. I probably do. I do remember the most silly things. But it's really important not to dwell on stuff and not to let it fester or let it bias how you think. If something keeps happening and then you start having bias towards that thing or that person, it's just destructive. And it's more harmful to you than anyone else, and it's going to damage the relationship. So I think what I would say is it's really hard to let it go. And that's why we need Jesus. You know, and as Josh said, you know, John 10, he came to give us life and life in full abundance. And so we need to turn to him and we need to ask him for help because we can't forgive and we can't let things go, you know, without turning to him and looking in the book and just asking for help there.
So good. That was amazing. Well, guys, you've talked about most of the things, you know, that we've kind of discussed in your marital course. But, you know, if someone came to you and they had like the whole evening, they spend the evening at yours, because I know, you know, we've had some couples that have gone and have praised, you know, the evening and they've had a nice Prosecco. We've not got that right now.
No, just water.
But we've got a little bit of time left. So I'm sure you get into other conversations as well. So let's carry this conversation on for a few more minutes. So I know in this course you touched on intimacy.
Oh, yes.
So we've not heard anything on that yet. And this is Young Adult Podcast. So they're sitting there waiting to hear a little bit about intimacy, because you two are glowing. You know, you look like a very thriving couple.
Well, 3 kids.
You know, off script now, let's talk, you know, intimacy. You know, what's a bit of advice? Because obviously you've got couples, if they're in church and they're God's honouring, you know, they're saving for marriage, and then suddenly their wedding day comes, and then it's, and, you know, for some it's very scary and daunting. You know, some people are actually, you know, some people are very excited for the intimacy part. Some people are very nervous for it. So what would you say maybe to couples who are, you know, in that waiting stage where they're waiting, they're saving it for marriage, and the big day comes that, you know, they're either scared or they're excited. What would you say about intimacy in that?
I think it's easy when you say intimacy to think of the Barry White music and, you know, but intimacy is so much more. That is a part of intimacy, and it's a great part of intimacy. And I think that is the one thing that sets your relationship apart from any other relationship you've got. Because if you've not got that, you've just got talking, spending time together, having a laugh together. That's the part that actually differentiates your marriage from other relationships. And it's about trust, it's about being vulnerable with each other.
But I think that's a really good point. It's only part of intimacy. And the fact is, if you think that is intimacy, you're in for a shock, basically. And actually, you build intimacy by so many other things, by understanding each other's love language, being able to show each other affection and receive affection. You know, one of the things I can do for Becky is give her quality time. You know, a way of creating intimacy for us at our stage of life is by getting rid of the kids for an hour so she can have her own time. And things like that help us get to a point where, you know, sex is great. And what I would also say is for people who are starting out on that journey is it takes time. And actually it's a journey. It's great fun. Don't make it too serious, you know. Enjoy it together.
Let's go here, because I know for some people, they get married and all of a sudden they've got this big idea in their life of what their sex life should look like. And all of a sudden it isn't as fun as they thought, it isn't as glamorous as they thought, it isn't as, you know,
it's not Hollywood.
As they thought. It's not Hollywood. You know, what would you, because I feel like it's a struggle that some couples might have, and they have it in silence because no one wants to tell anyone else about their sex life, or no one wants to say, by the way, like, is this what you guys go for? Is it just us? Or, you know, what would you advise? Is it good for couples to get around other couples to talk? Or is that a no-go? Is it, what should we say to couples who are like, our sex life is struggling?
I think whenever I go out with girlfriends and we chat and we come back, Josh will ask, what do you talk about? And then obviously it's reciprocated. Josh will go out with the lads, they'll have cigars, whiskey and everything. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're talking about sex. I'm like, men don't talk about sex. Women do talk about sex.
And I know you do, Becky, because I've been for a drink with you. It always comes out with Becky.
If you had Prosecco instead of water, you might get a bit more. But it's healthy to talk. I think the one thing you've got to make sure, if, for instance, you do think, I'm a bit bothered by this, I'm going to speak to this friend of mine because, you know, they're in a similar part of life or whatever. First of all, this is the ultimate trust here. So I can't say something to my friends that makes him look bad or that might upset him. You know, I've got to just completely shield that. And obviously, I should, if there is something that's bothering me, maybe actually speak to him first.
Yeah.
But it's healthy to talk.
Yeah.
BT said it's
And
good to talk.
Yeah,
I think,
and it's communication, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle because it's awkward, isn't it? When you're a first young married couple,
Yeah.
to sit down and be like, so shall we talk about sex?
Yeah.
Shall we talk about what I like and what you like?
Yeah.
And then it's an awkward conversation for a lot of people. So I think,
I think expectations are really key as well,
Yeah.
especially maybe from a man's point of view. So you're a horny teenager, 14, 15, like, oh yes, I'm getting married, this is brilliant, and you're thinking every day this is it, brilliant.
just going to jump in and
But-
just say, no one age 14 should be getting married.
No,
just as an aside.
but I think reality is different, and I think communication, talking about it, at the end of the day, set your expectations with each other. Everyone's different. I'm not saying that there is something you should be achieving, a frequency or whatever, but have that conversation with your other half. This is the most intimate relationship. You should be able to be ultimately and utterly vulnerable with each other.
Yeah,
So try and build that. If you can't do that yet, try and work towards that.
Yeah.
Friends can be a great place of advice, but don't ever fall into the trap of comparison.
very good.
Because actually, all that can do is make you even more unhappy. And you're not them, and they're not
Yeah.
you. So listen to them. Check what they say against what the Bible says, because ultimately God designed sex, and He said it was very good. It's a good thing. Lots of Christians get a bit freaked out by intimacy and sex, but God designed it. He wants you to have a good sex life.
Yeah.
That is fact. But of course, there's ways and means to do it which are in line with God's will and outside of God's will. So think about how you're conducting it and how you're sort of behaving, and make sure that you're in line with what God wants, the way He would expect you to behave, and don't ever compare. Don't ever compare.
That's really good. Something to be excited for, isn't it?
Yeah.
The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. And it's like anything, isn't it? You work on your marriage and you work on things inside your marriage. And, there's loads of avenues of your marriage, not just one thing. There's, how you read the Bible together. How do you now pray together?
Yeah.
How do you serve together? How do you do work together? Like, there's so many ways. So I just think it's key to keep communicating with people. That's why courses like this is so good, because you're already getting to know a good couple in church who can guide you through it. A friend of mine the other day said, what's some advice you'd give for marriage? And I said, to be honest, you can learn a lot before marriage, but I said, you do learn the most on the job.
Absolutely.
But I said, when you're on the job, what you need to do is communicate to other couples.
Yes.
Get yourself around other couples, talk to them, get advice, because you're constantly learning. I'm 5 years into it. I'm constantly learning, constantly. So I'm so keen to just get around another couple and be like, hey, are you finding this the same? What do you do when this happens? Because you come across stuff that you're never going to know.
Absolutely.
You're not expecting.
Absolutely. And the feedback we've had from the pre-marriage course is that actually they've encountered what we talked about, but it didn't just because they did the pre-marriage course didn't mean suddenly everything was perfect and everything was fixed. Really, all the pre-marriage course did was give them an awareness of what might happen, and maybe allow them to start a conversation earlier on about what their expectations are and all that sort of stuff, and bridge those gaps earlier on. But ultimately, until you're in it, you can't practice it and you can't develop it. But it's always good to get around people that you trust and have been there. Definitely.
I mean, it's just such a big shift.
Yeah.
It's you, and this is what you do on a Monday and on a Tuesday, and then all of a sudden there's this other person, and obviously you know them and you want to spend the rest of your life with them. You love them dearly, and you want to live together and have children together and all this kind of stuff. But all of a sudden, it's not just about you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's about being sacrificial, not just the ultimate sacrifice that Jesus did, the dying on the cross, but, just little things like, oh, well, do you know what? Normally I'd go to Monday night football, but actually my wife's been working really hard all last week, so I'm going to take her out.
Yeah.
Or, I was supposed to be going out with the girls on Friday night because it's our Prosecco night, but my husband's been away with work and he's back, so I'm going to surprise him, and just little things like that.
What I would say for those people who are dating, who aren't married yet, practice it now before you get married.
Yeah.
Because those things shouldn't just start once you're married.
Yeah.
You need to get into the habits and into the routine as early as you can, because that will build a stronger marriage.
Yeah.
You don't suddenly think like a married person because you're married. You should start thinking like a married person when you know that's the person you want to marry.
Yeah. Love it. Well, hey, if you know me, I like putting people on the spot. So lastly, before we finish, I'm going to put you on the spot. Because, I like to spice things up and, it'll be good for you both.
Okay.
So Becky or Josh, everyone goes first, whoever feels more confident. What's the best trait or characteristic in the other person? So Josh, what's the best thing or the most thing you love about Becky?
Whoa, there's so many to choose from.
Oh, cool. Pick one. What's the best trait she's got?
I think I love her intellect, actually. So Beck really enjoys getting to know and understand things, why they happen.
Yeah.
I love the way that she really gets into the Bible, and she really, you have like this little Bible Project app that you listen to, don't you? And you love it because it goes into all the cultural history and the philosophy behind it all, and I love that bit about you.
Wow, you just made me sound so cool.
Come on.
We're not getting back now.
Look how happy they are now. Come on, Becky, what's one thing? And Josh?
It sounds really corny and it sounds totally rehearsed, especially because we're in church, but genuinely how much he loves God.
Yeah.
It's I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I think it's infectious. I think it's something that's in his family because I just feel so comfortable around his family as well. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's that culture.
Yeah.
And I just had a sneaky peek on the screen. He looks hot.
Hey. Love it.
You didn't say that about
Look
him.
how happy they are. See,
Standards.
this is what I've learned. Yeah, with me and Nathan, I've learned this over the years. I think the start we struggle to compliment each other, say good things. And I think so many couples do.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that, so hey, if you ever come around for dinner with a couple, you're going to be asked this question. But they always end up leaving smiling because they've heard nice things about each other. So
Yeah.
hey, nice comments is always good,
brilliant.
isn't it? But guys, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for coming
Our
on
pleasure.
and blessing us all with your wisdom. It's been amazing. And hey, more than your wisdom, the best way to learn from you guys is by example and just watching you do life, watching you come to church with your kids, with your family, planting it here in the house, and just doing your life well, loving on people. I always think I learn most from example. So thank you for being an example of a great
thank
couple
you.
in church. But young adults, that's all we've got time for today. Hey, you need to share this link with someone, whoever you know in your world. Maybe they're about to get married or maybe they're dating and they're excited for it one day. Share the link. But guys, this is it for podcasts for a while. I'm going to miss them, but we will be back hopefully. Maybe next year we'll do some more podcasts and we'll see where we go with that. But until then, guys, we'd love to see you in person in our in-person gatherings. But then, apart from that, take care.